Hello, Ranjin number Samala, Tini Natutile, Shuatan Chapchi, Tini Tagon Kondaki, Tungi Chalaya, Tini Lama Jambu, Jamulutaya Gizeshabe, Lama Jambuti, and the Tupi, Shinda Chambu Kiki, Kajan Tambanamji, Solde de Mashi Savares.
Good morning, everyone. Yesterday evening, in our teaching on the Calling the Lama from Afar by Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Tai, we have already been through the passage teaching the masters of the eight great lineages, and so we have already been through these supplications.
各位早安。那昨天晚上我们开始讲了这个掌控仓储罗格泰野他的这个教程，然后呢，他的这个他的著作就是辽夫上师其认为，那昨天已经讲完了8个传承的这个祖师的这个提醒人。
我们学习也不沾呢，自从三界公见我呢，发生这个我说的是。大别拉面下拉归家，在深圳南街上把大伯爷接着激动，这就的么的把别是给过的。Teni ta tiringi kapsula lama chambeki nala ta ngana zungwe shiki kapla career se na kema se ta tri semje lingi tikto chens tome tene korwa yurin cham ta nung tonga tame nyongyurbes kyoshe keche tsamya makebes lama keno tuje nyutu si sen sungyores.
So today we will begin with a passage on page 39 that begins, "Alas, sentient beings like ourselves who have committed negative actions, wander in samsara from beginningless time, still experiencing endless suffering. We do not feel even an instant of repentance. Lama, think of us. Behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that renunciation arise from the depths of our heart."
那今天我们就从法本的第38页开始，在这里偈言是如下：插呼，同我一般恶业有情众，无始以来常转轮回中，尚须历尽无边之痛苦，刹那厌离亦未曾升起。上师见之我，其以慈悲及垂顾，加持升起甚深之处理。
Adi nala kema sana karisungure sana pe ngarancho korwa dila kyowa kene kema sana ta ngarancho damadana ta ten taki teni ta tawe ngarantrawi teni semche lengen tikpa yungen tencho ngarantrawi tikpa ke semche lengen bi wangi ane kalwa thoma mepani ane tanda bardola korwa la yunrango 나란저 캠네 때도요레스 다도이나야 아니 나란저기 소소 메케비기 레사 내가 나싱이 디바 민제바 밤에 나란저 짜네 동안 탐해봐 매발 나란저 연결해 마도 세네 되기 토야지 짜네 요 말레스 다도이나야 되는 나란저 뒤져 돌아 나와 강샤도 나와 강샤와 뒤져 돌아 된데 따나 당샤바야나 ane tiksa mare ta dare de tene ngaranjo punjun soba ta kare yamba punjun soba de jiten korwala shenja wo punjun soba de chashana digi mare de la tene kare chegoresa na ngaranjo chan dul nyen kyong kona la de pa yina de tiksa mare samne sungores.
So it says, the passage begins by saying, "Alas." And alas means that we are very sad and upset or depressed to be in samsara. It is us and it is beings like ourselves who have accumulated bad karma. And because of our we have been accumulated accumulating bad karma from beginningless time. And so for that reason, we have been wandering in samsara for a very long time. And yet this is not enough. As we do this, we continue to accumulate non-virtues. We continue to not hold back from doing misdeeds. And as a result of this, we all experience endless suffering. And we do not have any happiness at all. And so the thought here is that if we continue to waste our lives, then that would not be right. So right now, if we were to be attached to all of the good things of this world, to this world and samsara, that would not be okay. If we're attached to this world and samsara, what we would do is we would try to overcome our enemies and help our friends. And doing this will not help us, as it is said.
那首先呢，在这里有一个这个哀嚎声，叫说插呼，这是一个就是一个好像要代表自己非常的这个伤心，非常的这个抑郁的一个这个惊叹词。那在这里呢，为什么我们抑郁，或是为什么我们是非常的伤心呢？因为我们还有如我们一般的这些有情众生，从无始以来就一直在这个轮回当中，也就是我们在轮回中轮转了非常的久。那不仅如此呢，我们呢还在这个不断的轮回当中，一再的犯下了更多的恶业，那因此呢，造就我们无尽的这个痛苦的因。那如果我们在今生也这样一般的继续枉费我们的生命的话呢，这是不对的。如果我们在今生依然是只有执着我们所谓好的事物上面呢，也就是执着于这个世间还有这个轮回当中的事物的话呢，我们会造成什么样的行为呢？就是我们会一再的想要降服我们的怨敌，然后帮助我们的亲友，这样的想法是错误的。
다 nga 마음바 라니 nga랑 닌돌라 두치기 그 단단히 되네 사차도 스탕에 손레케 사차도 다 다니 땡야와도 nga랑랑에 낸손도 케비 삼바데 교시 케직자야 nga랑게 셈라 케기 민도와 삼네 오시야보 시케네 원중라 코로라 교시 야보지 케네 되네 다니 라마 투시세시 siya re mato ngala kaya mindu sungne tene ngenjung tingni kewar chinji lo sene sungyo res.
And so what this is saying is that now, from now on into the future, we have accumulated the causes for being reborn in samsara from now on. That's done. And so now we must not let ourselves have any intention or any thought that would lead us to rebirths in samsara. And so for that reason, we say here, Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. This is saying with great depression, great sorrow and revulsion, please, Guru, please think about us. I have nothing else that I can do. And then it says, bless us that renunciation arise from the depth of our heart. May we feel the wish for emancipation from our very depths.
也就是说呢，从现在到未来呢，我们如果继续下去的话，我们会继续积累轮回的因。所以呢，我们现在要做的就是从这一刻起，不再升起这个会再入轮回的这种想法或是动机。那因此呢，接下来说了祈请了上师见知我，其以慈悲及垂顾。那在这里就是我们抱着非常伤心的这种心情，非常渴求的祈请我们的上师，这个让我们不再有其他的这个动机，然后呢，请上师加持我们升起甚深的出离心。
Ani ta ngaranzo la korwa la ngenjung yabo che kene ngaranzo korwa la ngenjung yabo che lo kene chidangi ngaranda chole number taba che kewe tsawa la chole number taba che sungo gores ta chole number taba la sumba la lakbar to ngaranzo karo yasana soso tsawe tomba sungo gore ani changju samki tomba ani sanga sawa nga ki tomba dende tomba yabo che ngaranzo top dendeche sun dendeche nango gores dendeche nango gde zambala tening aranju ge soda tomba inare chanju samba tomba inale a sanga ge tomba inare kare sungore sana zo de tambo aranju ge semnani kulong number taba 대가 난싱이 semnalo korwang enjung lo yakboji mena 아니 대가 세직직 소소의 korwang mena 아니 데데 tomba de togu mare sene 아니 아ranju sungu yore, sungin dindre yores.
So now we have to have a true wish to achieve liberation from samsara. And to have that true wish to, and if we have that true wish for renunciation from samsara, then we need to keep pure discipline. And we need to try to protect it and keep our roots of virtue. So when we want to protect our true discipline, what is that? That means taking the vows of individual liberation, or the vows of the bodhisattva, or the vows of mantra. And so we need to take these vows and then keep these vows. And when we take the vows of the personal liberation, of the individual liberation, or the vows of the bodhisattva, or the vows of tantra, then what is it that we primarily need? The main thing that we need is to have a pure motivation in our mind. We need to have the motivation of wanting to achieve liberation from samsara. If we do not have that pure motivation and that wish for liberation from samsara, then it is difficult to actually take the vows. In fact, there are masters who have said that you do not receive the vows if you do not have such a motivation.
那我们现在呢，想要从轮回当中解脱，要怎么做呢？首先呢，就是要有非常清净的戒律，那也就是透过这个善根来让我们达到这样的愿望。那当我们说清净的戒律，这包含了什么呢？也就是受自己这个别解脱戒，或是受菩萨戒，或是受这个密乘戒。那在受这些戒律的时候呢，最重要的一点是什么呢？就是要有一个非常清净的发心、清净的动机。也就是说呢，什么样的动机叫做清净的动机呢？也就是想要从轮回当中解脱的这种发心。那如果没有这样子清净的发心的话呢，要受戒是非常困难的。往昔的这个大德们也曾经跟弟子说过，如果呢你没有发这样的清净的动机去受戒，是得不到戒体的。
Tene di kari nala sungo yore se na, tene kyang kama ba mi kyo tur chigi sungu nala kari sungo yore se na, korwa la ngenjung ma ke na, sosor tabi tomba tokyo me sungu. Korwa la ngenjung ke wala tsende la lo lo ba chi kyo kyo yore se sungo yore. Tsende la lo lo ba ke wa tena chima yo ba ngeji, ngeshe tembo shi yo kyo yore. Tanda ngoy su rangi la ngesong ke me na yang, 아니 나랑도 내송이 동안라 설라메 바지 삼로지 콜고레스
And so where is this said? Well, it is said in the writings of Mikyo Dorje. Mikyo Dorje said, it is said in Mikyo Dorje's complete works that if we do not have the intention of trying to liberate ourselves from samsara, then we will not be able to take or receive the vows of individual liberation. And in order to do that, in order to have that wish for emancipation from samsara, we need to turn our minds away from this life. And we must have a very stable conviction that there are future lifetimes. And even though we are not currently in the lower realms, we must also have the thought that the suffering of the lower realms would be unbearable.
那是哪位大师这么说过呢？是这个米救多杰大师。那他曾经就说了，如果呢你没有从这个轮回当中解脱的这种动机的话呢，你就没有办法真正的领受这个别解脱戒。那要怎么样有这种清净的动机呢？要怎么对轮回或是升起想要解脱轮回的这种动机呢？首先你要让你的心出离让你的心这个不向往今生，也就是升起出离心。那要升起出离心呢，首先你要非常的确信有这个今生来世这样的概念。而且呢，不仅如此，你还要非常的确切，或是呢有这个把握说，如果升到这个三恶道的话呢，恶趣的这个痛苦是难以想象，是没有办法忍受的。
근데 잠발라 되네 나랑 좀 미세데 뭐니 뒤에 돌아 만들어 왔지는 뭐니 삽삽 텐시 바이트 나야데 베 개침버려 되네 나랑 좀 뒤에니 샤당 다와당 로다 찌나 데케지케지 라단다 아니 뒤에도 조조거레스 다티 뒤에들라 아니 나랑 좀 담주 주변에 최제 류가 있는 전거야데 베 개침버려 대 맞춤나 가르송거래서나 다 단디나라 다저 tom야 미세 동세게 세테는 알아도 다와게 저로 추sam에 밀르는 뭐저 톰나야 미세 동바다고 저래스 don다 요 말레스
And so for that reason, we haven't got any time to waste in this life. We need to be careful. We need to apply our heedfulness, our mindfulness, and awareness. And this is very important. Every day, every month, our lifetime is being used up. Each moment, our lifetime is being used up. And so for that reason, it is incredibly important that we devote our body, speech, and mind to the practice of the true Dharma. And so as it says here on the top of page 41, although we have attained a precious human birth with leisures and resources, we have this precious human body, and if we do not use it well, there will have been no point.
所以呢，了解了上面这一点，我们要知道我们没有任何的时间可以浪费，然后呢，因此呢，升起这个觉知、觉察，还有不放逸的这种心态，那也只要时刻的提醒自己，分秒都是我们的生命在流失。那因此呢，我们要非常着重于将我们的身语意三门都转向佛法。所以呢，在这里法本的第41页就说：“以得暇满人生虚度，人生尽虚度，此生无益所作常散逸。懒于承担大力解脱行，无益从财宝周空手回。”
되니 응에마 나라도 지수 밀러려 봐 되니 히말라야게 이렇게 녀상서 사실라 되니 옴자갈 페레스 아니 지수 밀러 녀상서 녀상 쿠티서다 곰자비캅라 되니 녀상바 민민민들 키라고 못어지 살아 키라스나 가르서 한딩쟁에 샘제생에 키라 고모터제세 아니 지수 밀러데 제레스 아니 지수 밀러 제비칼라 주주밀라기 키라고 보도절라 가리송으로서는 시당이 나랑 좀 미생한데라 되니 밀루 토벨라 페 프레셔스 오멜 라이프 미 깨발라야데 페 칼레카고레 송고레스 이나 미쳐도 깨발라야나 콤보짜니 말레스 가르에서는 코키라 이제 semje 마보 세교레 되는데 좀발 주주밀라기 아니 키라고 보도절라 미쳐도 보내는 지된데라 페 콤보 마레스 결과는 마레스에서 가르치는 순간에서 공인문에 미제 감사 semjenjanjang 세데 미제 키리서 말나 미제 동세 미제 다와 계단 저로 추서 밀을 뭐지 톰나야 미제 돈나 만다면 되지 제대 잠발안 주주밀에게 되는 송거래서 된저인데 잠발안 나란 저기 아니 소소인 바이나 나란 저다 미제 돈난데 막 소소 레도 레미도 소소기 다니마 까마 뒤 다와 가란 저다 즉 다와 계단 저로 추서 밀을 뭐지 운에 자네기 로지지도 팀네 운에 자네기 내 개와 제도 재미도 소소 양보 진냠시 다한테 빼 계신 거래스.
There is a story of the lifetime of Milarepa. Many years ago, many centuries ago, when Milarepa was living, he once went to go meditating in Nishang. And when he was in this area of Nishang, then there came to him a person whose name was Kira Gompa Dorje. So Kirawa is a word that means hunter. So this is the hunter Gompa Dorje. And he came to see Milarepa. And what is it that Milarepa said to him? And Milarepa said to him, for a human, generally achieving a precious human birth with the 8 leisures and the 10 resources is extremely difficult. But that doesn't mean someone like you. And the reason why it doesn't mean someone like you, a lifetime like yours has no point. And the reason that it doesn't have any point is that you've spent your entire life killing sentient beings. And so if we think about a human life, one such as yours is not at all rare. And so why is that? It's because Kirawa Gompa Dorje had spent his entire life killing sentient beings. And so for that reason, his precious human body, the 8 leisures and the 10 resources had all been wasted, just wasted and left pointless. And so we also have to think about ourselves. We need to think about, are we doing something that's making our own human life meaningful? Is every day, every minute, every month, every year, are we using our human life in a way that is going to take advantage of these 8 leisures and 10 resources? It's really important for us to examine ourselves carefully and see.
那在数百年前呢，有这么一个故事，那就是弥勒日巴生平的故事。有一天呢，弥勒日巴尊者他在尼善这个地区呢做这个禅修。那当时呢，就一位这个这个凡夫叫做 Kira Gompa Dorje。那 Kira 呢，就是这个狩猎者，或是这个狩猎者的意思。那当时呢，这个猎人呢，他碰到了弥勒日巴，弥勒日巴尊者就对他说，通常我们说呢，人生难得，人生难得是因为呢，拥有这个8个闲暇，还有10种圆满，这是非常难得的。但是呢，如你一般这样的人生，你把你这个身体呢，用了一生来杀猎其他的众生，这种人生呢，一点都不难得。因为呢，弥勒日巴尊者这么说呢，是因为这位猎人他将他这个难得的人生，难得具足这10圆满8种闲暇的人生，就这么枉费了，都拿去杀害其他的众生了。所以呢，相同的，我们也要检视我们自己在今生是不是好好善用了这个人的身体，然后呢，是不是让自己的一生具足了意义，不管是今天还是这个月，还是这年，还是往昔的这些日子里，我们是不是都有善用我们这8种闲暇、10种圆满，要非常仔细的去考虑一下。
되네 되메 센터 자와 딱도 yense 송요레스 당하나 저 던다메 바 센데기 자와 조와라 때네 코르위기 되기 토와니 레발레 도보망고요레 상하나 저 코르와다 내가블라 되기 용아치돌라 되기 저 레발레 도보망고 지요레스 갈때 마토 요방도 땅나야 요링고 강한 도마시 지네 거든 마도 로판보레스 하바도 팅산 메리 대기 주비 탑람라 나쪽이 타고 지땡기 토카와라 네바방부 지 소용요레.
And so as it says on the top of page 41, the second line, it says, we waste in vain, constantly distracted by the activities of this hollow life. And so in this lifetime, we spend a lot of time on activities that are pointless, the activities of this lifetime. We have a lot of difficulties and we go through a lot of difficulties and hardships for this lifetime, all for the sake of temporary samsaric pleasures. But these are pointless, and so we try our best to gain happiness, and we try various ways to gain happiness, but these are all worldly ways, and these are all worldly ways that in the end only create suffering.
那在40页的这个上面呢，这个法本就说此生无益所作常散益。那在这里是什么意思呢？就是说我们在今生此生当中呢，做了许多无益的事情，也就是无意义的事情。那也因此呢，感到了面临了许多这个痛苦还有困难。那我们这一些痛苦和困难呢，都是为了可以换取在轮回当中的这个喜乐。但是呢，我们经历了这么多不同的方式去追求快乐，我们追求的这些快乐呢，却是世间的快乐，而世间的快乐呢，终究只会为我们带来痛苦。
인데 잠발라 되네 가라서 뒤견도 있나 되네 돈로당 속절라 소비 샘자마모 랑가란조게 세와지요레스 세와 제바 임바 손자 덴디게 되니 세와 제바가 쳔디기 그는 가라서 대기 두점기 탑람 탑 다오제마도 탑자 잠제마도 아니 탑람 만노르지 용기 가라서 용기요 말 쳔디 된던데 맞아 용기요 말레스 탈롬 된줄로 때네 랑란 되비기 되기 본전 줘보지 토메바 단 된쪽에 샘젤라 세와제 되기들 제바들라 나랑도 내가 그 쳔들라 되기 토바 잠마지 오늘 돈던데만 중요로 그래서나 나랑도 된데 봤잖니 중요 말레스.
And so in order to achieve the pleasures of this lifetime, we cause a lot of harm and violence to animals and other sentient beings. And we do this as a way to try to achieve happiness and pleasure in this lifetime alone. But these ways of doing it, these are second-rate ways of acting for pleasure. They are not unmistaken ways. They do not really bring meaning to this lifetime. We are not, by acting on these ways of harming sentient beings, we are not actually able to bring ourselves the happiness that we want. And so for the sake of temporary pleasures, we do these methods of harming sentient beings. But does it actually bring any meaning to our life? It does not bring any meaning at all.
那所以在这一生当中呢，我们为了追求快乐，我们对其他的动物还有其他的众生带来了种种伤害，而这种我们所追求的快乐却只会在这一生受用，而这种快乐也就是非常次等的，并不是就近的快乐，而且呢，对于我们今生并不会带来任何的意义，不会让我们的人生具意，而且呢，也不是我们终究追求的真正的快乐。所以呢，在今生为了许多短暂的快乐，我们就是这样一般的去伤害了许多这个众生。
Teni tunjen thala chuwa lelo cher norulling ne lakton longjurwes lama keno tuje nyutusis mulu tena chobar chinjilo setangare ta ngaranzu ki teni ngaranzu tsechima senamindo teni ngaranzu tsendila ani ngaranzu mulu tenda cheya chidola teni ngaranzu chuye chengen tawena teni ngaranzu kachegi ngaranzu tawasugore ani ngaranzu kache tawa kache karichegore ani pambandi jugi 오늘 세들라 지금 코로나데 교와께 코로나데라 오늘 닝범에 봐야 뭐 통네 파만데 저게 아니 땅안 저 히말라야 이렇게 선남에도 왜라이나 다 다와데 오늘 보고 춘주 간에 코로나 미세 가리차에 막 보고 그런 게 하고 요 말했어 보 부인날에 범인날에 남인이치 되는 거랑 저 파마게 다 주네 아니 고반데를 계도 가리치는 계고라서나 나란조 지등이 자와디 오늘 다 걸어왔나라 동에 냥니 교월 깨네 나란기 다 보지 나나시 뉴마고 와지나 나나시 동에 뉴마고 지 공발하지 깨와이나 아니디 걸어왔네 다투브레 산에 레와 상고된데 지켰네 아니 공발하 깨요레스 임바이나야 카셰지니 되게 공발하 슈차주자 말라 근데 공백이 빼졌다 아니 차베시 코로나는 연중 키에 미주 된다는데 맞지 된대지 툭툭이 파미기 레와야 강 자빌라마기 샵도 슈 되는 미주 된다는데 장애야 망보여래 내가 난신 가신데 차지가라 키나야 안 개왕아마기 레당 손남 매발라 키네 이 소소기 취지에서다 내지 개외나 겸지게나 이 아니 소소기 누르 라고네 쇼르반 난신기 아니 소소기 제약이 가서래 고급대 라게요 말했어 누르 던전도를 레로왕이 아니 누르링 락동교로서 누르더니 소소기 가서래 다 누르직 랭고산나 누르들 레몬다 미지 돈나 맞아 레로왕도 쉬네니 데로스 베제제 땅도 그래 덴데 인데 잠발라 아니 덴데 다나 가란주 임바인다 데니 오늘 전에 가란주 ingema si tamana teringaza 오늘 라마 켜버터 쳔바 오늘은 자원 가마바 연제 창고를 뭐지 켜봐야 센 넘버 라마 탈레 되는데 라마 키진다베 생년의 마모는 송트 시제 마모 중요해서 이날은 냠네 오늘 딩이 지기 여러분서나 하는 거 아주 가주니 내가 라마도 딩이 가는 날로 되지 추기 셈데 추기 딩은 주인의 낭토버에서나 아니 망보치게 되는 낭토버 말은 내려인들 잡아라 되는 거란도 노루 라고 연다는 노루대 라고는 쉬어버다고 진데 저를 되는 멤버체 때문에 단내기 아니 가란도 미제데 돈단 템바데 문에 단내기 쉬어도마다 매 산다도 나고 백해 첨버레스
So as the text continues, it says, when it comes to accomplishing the great goal of liberation, we are overcome by laziness and return empty-handed from a land filled with jewels. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we make this life meaningful. And so we need to make this life, we need to make our next life, and in this life, meaningful. And so we have to make this human body meaningful. So all of us, we are Dharma practitioners, and some Dharma practitioners go and become monks and nuns. And why is it that people become monks and nuns? It is because they see that samsara, they feel revulsion for samsara. They see that it has no point, and they want to do something to make use of their lifetime. In the Himalayas and in Tibet, what often happens is that parents will see that samsara has no point, and that they want to help their children. The children, of course, don't know what's going on. They don't understand, but the parents send them to the monasteries. And the reason why they do this is because they see that through worldly affairs, they don't bring any happiness, that it only brings the suffering of samsara. And so for that reason, they bring their children to the monasteries in order to protect them from this, because they see it as a way to liberate them from samsara. And so when the children are brought to the monastery, whether they're young monks or young nuns, they're brought and they study the text, they learn the texts of the monastery, they study the philosophy, and some among them develop a wish for liberation. They make use of it, and they fulfill their parents' hopes, and they also are able to truly serve their root gurus. And those people are able to make a good use and give meaning to their lifetimes. But some of them are unable. They don't feel any weariness from samsara. They don't have enough merit from the past, and so they are not able to make use of it. And so for those people, it's like they've got to a land of jewels, and they've got jewels in their hands, and they just let them drop through their fingers. And so it's like they have nothing at the end. You have the opportunity, you have the jewels, but you don't make any use of them. And so for us, it is similar. When we look at it these days, we are really extremely fortunate if we think about it. We have the opportunity to see and hear so many gurus. We can meet and hear the Karmapa. We can see Kenshin Trungpa Rinpoche. And there are also innumerable other gurus whom we can hear, whom we can see. But we have to look at ourselves and see, are we actually making use of that? Are we using this to make our lives meaningful? If we just listen, then there is benefit to it. But this is something that is really going to give us the wish to practice Dharma from deep within. Are we letting that happen? Mostly we aren't. And so it's as if we've gone someplace. We have all these jewels in our hands and we just drop them. And so though we have this chance to make our life meaningful, we really don't. And so for that reason, it is really important to develop the wish to only devote ourselves to practicing Dharma.
那接下来呢，这个偈子就说：懒于承担大利解脱行，无意从财宝舟空手回。上师见之我，其以慈悲及垂顾，加持成就具义之人生。那所以呢，这里呢就是告诉我们要让今生来世都具足意义。那让这个人生具足意义呢，我们大家呢都是大部分都是在修持佛法，而修持佛法的这些人呢，有一些可能将来或者是修持到后来会出家成为僧人，不管是成为尼师或是成为这个和尚都好。那为什么修持佛法的人会有这样的这个转变呢？就是他们在修持的这个路途当中，对于轮回升起了出离心，他们觉得这个轮回是没有意义的。因此呢，他们想要让今生具足意义，所以才会选择出家这条路。那在喜马拉雅山区呢，有非常多的家长也是有这样的见解，他们看出来了轮回是多么的没有意义，所以他们会趁孩子还小的时候，把他们送去寺院出家。那这些家长呢，就是平常过着生活的时候，看到这个日常生活这些忙碌于日常世间的这些事物呢，是多么的没有毫无意义的，或是说呢没有快乐可言的，所以呢，他们才会发起这样的心态，想要帮助孩子，让他们有这个解脱轮回的机会。因此呢，许多孩子或是这个在寺院会有许多这个年纪轻的这个出家众，那他们可能从年纪小的时候就开始学习这些佛典，还有这些教理。那在学习的当中呢，一部分的这些小僧人，他们就会真正升起对于轮回的这个厌离或是出离心，而且呢，接着呢，好好的让他的这一个人生具足意义，好好的去完成他们这个父母的这个厚望，以及呢帮助上师根本上师的这个佛行事业。而相反的呢，也有一些孩子，一些这个年轻的僧侣，他们即使学了好几年的这个佛典还有教理呢，也是对于轮回生不起这个厌离心。那这是因为他们往昔的这个福德不够厚重。所以呢，对于这些孩子来说呢，就好比他们被送进了这个满是珠宝、金银财宝的这个这个州或是山，而空手而归这样子。那相同的呢，我们很多在座的也是如此。我们现在呢有很多机会可以看到很多大德上师，也可以听取很多大德上师的教法，例如说第17世大宝法王、看见创古仁波切等等。那我们都有这么多机会去听取他们的教法，我们有实际的去善用这些教法吗？就实际的因此而善用我们这个人生吗？当然，我们可以光是听到他们说法，就是非常的好的，非常有福德了。但是呢，我们有实际听了以后，还付出这个实践的吗？有没有以他们的这些建议，让我们的这生具足意义呢？如果没有的话呢，那大部分 确实是没有办法做到。那就如同我们刚刚所说的，入了宝山却空手归。那知道了这点以后，我们就要尽量的、尽可以的将今生的这个时间致力于修持佛法。Lama microphone.
마시사된 롱바치갸메 단다칭 니도 바로로 라야 요원이도 치고야 요린도다 제위닝르고 라마제노 토제뉴도 시스 롱메로나 통월 첸지소 로세송을 가르스그레스나 카셰기 딩상 푸장 링보게 삼로지 땅에 카셰 요레스 카셰니 초지니 푸장 통동 덴데게 도셈 셴에 덴데 요레스 가리 요레스나 라니 시주메비 다 가란수 파제 시야 요마레스 시야기 차시야 덴데 요마레스 에네데 가르레스나 안 테린 가잔 잠불레나 센리 야kin도 시오조고레스 센리 야kin도 게라 파제 치와스가네 요고 마레스 아니 요고 마레스 시야 덴데 요고 마레 삼네 데체네 셈노탕에 한데 카 요레스 가르레스나 니마 추저 뒤들 센리도 야게시 우제 돌아 때네 나란조 때니 치와생안에 미데 시야메 받는지 여기 요도 상회인데 데레 요레스 임바이나야 타체리 간주 중국어 야게 간주 조바이나야 나란조 치와생안에 메바 소토비아고 요마레스 데니 나란조 센리다 치용어라 구토바이나 나란조 니마레레레 케치레레레라 아니 나란조 주포기 슉쇼 도거레 독쇼 도거레 아니 소소게 셈로 땅땅이나 뉴바데 충루 도거레 베나 차샤바 나닝이로 지기니 당 단다기 소소기 요비기 데니 수포기 톱다 뉴바데 타나 베코로 카카레스 뉴바데 셴도 도와줘요레 아니 나란조 톱대 충루 도와줘요레스 나란기 카셰기 셈로 나 가리셰고레 오 나타 추에생간데 문네탄네 리차에 차자네 마음발라다 리차에 도차 로얄레네 디디간라 추에치기 사바데데 사모야데데 요레스 텐데 마레스 나란조 타문네탄네 좀 마시 사텐 롱발라 미싱에 마싱에는 치에요 마레스 텐데 인도 자말라 나란조 단자 뒤저 요바텔라 네 뉴바 요비카바 데니 나란조 상하기 왕도 셰바나 아니 공로 충충 싸 된저 상보 야보 로충충갈라 냠네 야보 체바이나 아니 말아줘 똑바든자 끼레라와 최체바이나 오늘 단에게 가서래 아니 레라와 도제 냠네이나 야타바지 중투거레스 베나 차샤바다 가나 도제나 파제 롱업주 센터거레스 데니 다 단당아이 참붐 도제 뭉직 세거나 디스칼레카고 도제 차서레스 냠마 도제 나와 참붐 붐 탱만이 도제 따인스 되되가 롱문에 단에게 직다 뉴바 토비오데가 칼레 도지는 다 드링가 장문에 단에게 니만 된데 지르는 칼레가 니난 신기 알아도 참 니만이래라 깨지래게 수포고 또 셈로단데 바차도 그래서 된데 인도 저랑 알아도 잠불링들 마셔봐 되는 수치 요마데 참 니마제 드로고레스 된데 인도 잠발라다 깨지게 알아도 치와 미다바스는데 깨지 요인 바데 알아도 오네 메타바데 또 고레스
So the text continues on page 42. There is no one on this earth who will not die. Even now, people are passing away one after another. We also soon must die, but like a fool, we plan to live long. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion, bless us that we curtail all of our scheming. And so as this says, what this is saying is that we all at some point are going to have to die, but most of us are thinking we're trying to make plans. Some of us are making long-term plans and some of us are making short-term plans. Some of us are thinking, I'm not going to die. And we have no plan, or we do not include death in our plans. We don't make any plans including death. And part of this is because of these days, there's been such great improvements in science. And so we think to ourselves, science is coming along so far that we don't have to worry about die. And so there are people who think this. when we look around ourselves, we see that every day and every hour, there's such great improvements in science and technology that we think that it's quite possible that we'll get to a point where we just won't die. But no matter how much improvements there are in science and medicine, it's impossible to get to a place where we'll never have to die. And as we're waiting for science to make these improvements, in every single day and every single year, we can see that actually we're losing our energy, we're losing our strength, we're losing our capacity of both our body and mind. For example, you can look at yourself and see what is the difference between yourself now and what you were like a year ago. How have you changed? Do you have the same, if you look at it, you'll see that your body is probably growing weaker. Your mind is getting a little bit less clear. It's just like, it's just getting worse. It's just getting weaker and weaker all the time. So for that reason, some of us think that we're going to wait until we retire before we practice the Dharma. Work now, but then when we retire, we'll devote ourselves to Dharma practice. But if we do that, it's not certain it's going to happen. As it says, there is no one on this earth who will not die. Everyone is going to die. And so now, while we still have time and while we still have the energy, we need to practice. If we are able to practice and gather the accumulations of merit while we're young, if we're able to do practice, then it is said to be easier for us to develop realization, and the Dharma practice is easier, and it's said to go better. For example, with myself, I'm nearly 50 years old. If I were to try to do 100,000 prostrations now, it would be very difficult for me. But I've already done it twice when I was young. I did it twice when I was young, but if I look at the amount of energy and strength that I have now, it would be difficult for me to actually to do it now. And so it's that situation is the way with all of us. All of us, our bodies and our minds are growing weaker and deteriorating over time. And one day we are all going to have to go. We need to use it while we use our bodies and mind while we can. So for that reason, it is important for us to realize the death and impermanence.
那接下来在42页的句子是如下：人生在世，无人能不死。如今一一陆续赴黄泉，我亦不免迅速随将去。抚心却作长久住世纪，上师见之我，其以慈悲及垂顾，加持无暇故而减淫计。那在这里呢，也就是提醒我们，人生在世，没有人是不用面临死亡的。但是虽然我们每个人都必然面临死亡，但是我们每个人都做着种种的计划，不管是长远的计划，还是这个短暂的这个计划，我们在这两种计划当中呢，都不会考虑到一项，就是死亡。那在今天呢，可能我们会觉得这个科技啊，还有这个科学非常的发达，或许我们可以这个避免死亡，甚至是有人真的这么认为的，觉得说现今近代的这个科学啊、科技啊，还有这个医药的这个发展这么发达，我往后呢到我的时候我就不用死了，有人会这样子妄想。但是呢，不管这些科技、生技如何的发展，也不可能让我们这个真正的避免死亡。在每一天呢，我们都可以发觉我们自己的这个，不管是力气啊，或是能力啊，不管是身体还是心理上，都慢慢的在减弱。我们好好看看今天的自己，然后呢，将它与1年前的自己相比，我们就可以看到我们身体的体能降弱了，而我们的心也没有往昔的这么清晰了，我们的意识也没有那么的清晰了。所以呢，有些人会想说，我要等我现在就好好工作，那等我退休的时候再好好修持佛法。但是你又怎么可以确认说，会有这样的可能性呢？怎么可以确认说，在途中不会面临死亡呢？ 所以呢，在这里法本就说了，人生在世无人不能死，如今陆续赴黄泉。那我们现在呢有这个经历的时候，就要趁年轻的时候好好的去修持佛法，而且呢，在这种状态好的状况下去修持，也会更容易的这个证得一些这个绝照，那以这个拉玛说，以他自身来做比喻。如果要他现在已经快要50岁了，那如果要他现在去做10万个大礼拜的话，他可能会觉得有点困难。但是这10万个大礼拜，他趁年轻的时候已经圆满了2座，所以呢，现在再回想，如果现在要做的话呢，实在是有点困难了。那相同的，我们呢，大家也是要趁我们的自己的这个身心也会随着时间而退化，所以要趁着能用的时候好好的善用它。那在这里呢，我们也就是为什么我们一再的强调要去思维生死无常。
제장가 때문에 되는 뭐 son장 되는 유링 도잡집이 융주보 서다 유링 도고 삼나 된가라는 융주보라고 되네 차고래서 송고래서 다 디젤은 융도 도변 자시소소 잘 쓰는 송고래 단인도 도변 자시소소 잘 손에 잠바 간데 송고래서 나란줄라 네 소소라 가오 되는 녀오 로카로 된주 아니 나란주 니마직 다 치료 거래 치료 되 잠발라 되는 나란주 김바에나 셈바페 교호 용거래 미 종행 코너 친행 코너에나 셈교 용거래 지단기 팔미미 치위갑라 되는 동안 용나 쪼데 니더지 용거에 삼고요 시행 코너는 거네 폰존 소발라 되는 나란주 지된들라 근데 코로와들라 현차네 타줘버리 걸어발래 타 시차네 셈차네 고다도 지금 맞춰봐지네 셈차 용거래서 만두 신도라 다 소소의 셈나는 너바 매 신도라 저도 매 신도라 되니 다 챈데 나와 달고베 교와 치미게 되니 소버진다 셈나라 셈 너바 매 신도 소소 저니 매 신도라 되니 징낭다 땅낭다 대나니 되는 알아서 용네 되는 관건도 종주고 그래서 되네 다 되는데 잠발라 다 나란조 셴원이나 되는 다와 되네 로 되네 자시에 소소 조보 자시에 마보 닝님이 마보 치밍알라다 다 개와 종로거레스 페나 되네 되게 종로비칼라 페나 차샤바나 나란조 잡으치 바이나 되네 뒤균도 나란조 타만치 다 드링가 당에 마이나다 때못하게 때못자주 잠발라 되네 무비 롱이 되게 따지 잠발라 되네 다 롱이나 민데 직 종로지 잠바다 민데 카트에네 시조베칼라 간데 초월레기도 당하는 주 때못 타와 잠지게 하는 주에 가시 때문에 좀 미니미쇼 셈바교 말아서 쫄라랑제 데데체네 용거 그래서 디 때못 타와 잠지게 하는 주 셈들이 키고 그래서 때문에 그 소소의 자위게 조보 신년 파마 분야 데데 카트베칼라 되는 거네 그 진낭 장낭 데데치 용거 그래서 데데도 잠발라다 된줄라 가리 용거를 가리기 팽기를 데데갑라 되는 안한 주비 되니 다 가장 공도 쉬원한 신기 소소의 잠바다 인지 권의 소소 잡일라마 야보꼼 되니 된주시 야보꼼 최냠는 체벌을 되네 는 안한 주 펜토가 용도를 송거레스 디마이 맨다 안한 주 니마레레 자신들이 제주도 잠발라 되는 안한 주비 디메바 소야 열어서는 소야 말에 이마진 안한 주 개개하다 막 알아도 줘야 타취해서레스
And so we are like fools in making these plans to live long, as it says. Now, to continue on page 44, we will be separated from our closest friends. And so, as this is saying, we have all of the people who we love, the people who are close to us, the people who are dear to our hearts. And as we lose them every day after day, we lose friends and so forth. And this happens, we feel depressed and sad about it. we're very sad at the thought about dying, and we're very sad about the thought of our parents or people who are close to us passing away. And I think when we look at it, there are two different types of suffering that are happening here. First of all, there's the suffering of the person who's dying. This person who is dying has not yet cut the ties to samsara. They've not cut the ties of affection and so forth to their friends. They haven't cut their ties of attachment to samsara. And so when they, and even though they do not want to die, they don't have any desire to leave this body and go on. They must part from the people whom they love in this lifetime. They must part from the parents and everyone who is close to them. And even though they have no wish to, they must go on and die. So that's one type. And the second type is for all of us other people who are watching the people dying. So every day, every year, we see people who are dying, people who are close to us are passing away. And when this happens, then usually we feel very sad about it. So we often see this in movies. We always watch movies these days, right? And when in a movie, someone dies in a movie, then how do you feel? Sometimes we cry at a movie. Sometimes we feel very sad. We feel a lot of sympathy for the characters in the movie. So how is it that we actually are going to feel when it is someone who's truly close to us, when it is our friends or our parents or our brothers and sisters? What sort of a feeling are we going to have then when they pass away? And so what is it that can help us in this situation? Well, it is as I said yesterday. We need to have love and compassion, and then we should meditate and visualize our root guru and do Dharma practice. And this will be what will bring us benefit. In the end, we are going to lose everyone. We're going to be part away from everything. And so what is it that we need to do? We need to practice the Dharma, and this will definitely have some benefit.
然后呢，接着法本又说：心所爱悦，亲友分离去，牵令所及财物任人享。真爱之身，随后亦舍弃，终因神事无知转轮回。所以呢，我们就像这个傻子一样的，不断的去做这些打算，不断的去计划，就是为长寿的这种情况做打算。那在这里呢，我们面临死亡的时候呢，或是面临其他的亲友死亡的时候呢，是我们每天都会遇到的一个情况。可能呢，如果当我们的这个身边的父母啊，或是非常亲近的亲友，他们离开的时候，我们会感到非常的伤心，非常的痛苦。而在死亡的这种状况下呢，会有两种痛苦。第一种痛苦呢，当然就是亲身死亡的这个人，他呢因为自己还没有跟身边的人还有事物彻底的做一个了断，所以呢他们会自身没有任何的这个预想要这个离世。那另外一种痛苦呢，就是在看着这个面临死亡的人的这些围观者或是亲友们。那每一天呢，我们都经历，或是每个月都会经历身边会有人这个过世。那通常呢，我们都会感到非常的伤心、难过或是痛苦。就好像我们看电影，我们现在都很常看电影嘛。那当电影里有一个角色，这个过世的时候，你会有什么感受呢？有时候我们看了会伤心，有时候甚至会流泪。总之就是会有一种同情心。那相较之下，在真正的生活当中，当你身边的朋友、你的这个兄弟姐妹他们过世的话，你又会有什么样的这个感受呢？那要对治这种痛苦，要怎么去做呢？就是像我们昨天说的，平常要修持慈心，要修持悲心，然后呢，要去练习观想我们的根本上师，还有做这个祈祷、祈愿等等。因为终究我们会失去一切，所以呢，要在平常修持佛法的 话呢，对我们会有很大的帮助，很大的利益。
되니 더 센나서베 노제 신기추 스송요래 더 센나서베 노제 신기추 손데 잠발라 베나 차셔바 나가마 별라 되니 빼지셔나 자와베 로얄레 여ken고지 요레스 다 그래서 먼저 자와세대가 미기 되니 다 별라이나 다 미기 뭐와 말 추라 되니 다 뭐와 되지 표요레스 되니 또 잠발라 다 미기 뭐 건데 말아 사셔 요레스 그래서나 공 센나 제네데네 소소사나 사마도 통마도 밀라테나 테마도 안에 디레체나 사샤 타마데 가르차잖아 코로나 개주니 요레스 개주니 보데 되네 개갱이 교육이 된다라 파텐 투텐 제네 마차마다 온데 비차비 로주데 요레스 되는 난싱이 나란 좀 지데 수다 수이마이나 나는 나란 좀 센나 제네페 교들라 사제네 타망 알아서 파마이나야 규된다 부인이 맞춰봐 분기한테는 맞춰봐 내가 망고 용도 그래서 감주도 분기에나 맞춰봐 차 규된다는데 센나사는데 센나사베 노르세 신기 주여서 되는 알아서 그런 감주도 된 팀몰라 되는 미셔바기사 프로젝트도 그래 알아서 센나 전인데 이제 참말되네 알아서 센나사베다 되는 신기 주여도 그래 내가 차거를 선거를
And so the text continues, others will enjoy that we as misers kept. So there's a story about this, an example of this from Tibet, a story that comes down from Tibet. So there was a monk in Tibet, and he got to be quite old. He got on in years. And as he was a monk, a lot of people were giving him offerings of butter and cheese and samba and all that. And he just kept all of these offerings, and he was so miserly that he was unable to use them himself, but he was also unwilling to give them away to anyone else. And instead, he just kept on hoarding all of the goods. And so, in the end, what happened? Well, this monk had two students, and the two students they got into arguments over what to do with all of the food that he had been hoarding. And in the end, the students left him. So it is the same in the world. We keep things, we get very stingy about things. We aren't able to use them. And because of that, we often end up getting into conflicts with people. For example, a lot of people have conflicts with their parents over inheritances or assets and investments and so forth. Or sometimes it happens among siblings, brothers and sisters who got along very well, but get into arguments over possessions and family possessions, and even end up suing each other. And in the end, you end up losing everything anyways, and someone else is going to use it. And so instead of being so stingy and miserly with our things, we need to use them in order to practice the Dharma.
那接着呢，从这个心爱所悦，亲友分离去之后呢，又说了千令所及，财物任人享。就是呢，在这里呢有一个这个故事，就是关于一位在藏地的一位老僧人，那他非常老，非常的资深，所以呢，这个出家人总是会受到别人的供养，会有人供养他这个酥油啊，或是乳酪，还有糌粑等等。那这些东西呢，供养物他收到呢，却都是收集起来，而因为他太小气了，他舍不得自己用，更舍不得给其他人，变成说集聚了非常多的这些物资，然后呢，最后呢，他累积了太多了。导致他的两个弟子，为了要怎么处理这些这个食物而争吵起来了。那在纠纷之下呢，两位弟子最终都离他而去了。那在世间当中呢，我们也常常看到这样的这个例子，就是牵令，因为由于牵令而导致的这个种种的这个冲突。 例如说，可能这个孩子和自己的父母之间会为了遗产或是一些这个投资而争吵，而在兄弟姐妹当中，也可能为了这个家族的这个财物，还有家族的这个财产，而这个告上法庭啊，最终可能失去了一切。所以呢，在这里要提醒我们的就是，不能如此的牵令，有世间的财物要拿来用，而且呢，最好是用于修法之上。
Tene de zambala ngaranzu senna ki ta norje sabe senna ki wangdo mashoba ten yar kunjo somla choba mar ngeno la chimba tene ta doya de pe kechembore tene de zambala kebi chezo tang ane senna majo de che de pe kechembore de zambala senna ki wangdo mashoba chene tene tyukyendo tene ngaranzu chimba taya tang ane mela pensenjene tene mi kyo lo roba chia ane te senna ke wangdo machora sosola yuna ane tanda pe kechambare sana sungyo res tendo indi tambala ta di chela chewi luikya shuldu borne su namshe parto tolme korwa kyams lama kena toje nyuto se chi kyang kome tobar chinji lo sungyo res.
And so it is very important for us not to be miserly. Instead, what is important is for us to make offerings up to the 3 jewels and to be generous down to all those who are in need. This is very important. We need to use our resources in order to be able to gather the virtuous accumulations of Dharma and to practice the Dharma. And so it is important not to get miserly, not to be miserly, and instead do what we can to be generous, to help people, to assist people as much as we can, if we are able. And if you're able to do this, this is very important. Now then, the text continues reading, even our body we hold so dear will be left behind, and our consciousness will wander without direction in the bardos of samsara. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we realize the futility of this life.
所以呢，我们要注意，不要太过的这个牵令，或是小气。那可以的话呢，最好就是做到可以上供到三宝，或是下施于这个有需要的这些人啊。就是善用我们自己的这些资源来累积善根，然后呢，来这个利益我们的佛法修持。那当然可以的话，在这个条件允许之下去帮助其他的人是非常重要的一点。那接着呢，法本就说真爱之身随后亦舍弃，终因神事无知转轮回。上师见之我，其以慈悲及垂顾，加持了悟，一切皆枉然。
Teni ta ngaranzu ki te lui de pone ta ngaranzu nyamachi shidu res. Shiwi wodu la parto te chubu res. Parto senga de kares na ngaranzu mashiba ta shizawe paru de la ani ngaranzu parto senga res. Teni parto ki pabla ta ngaranzu lama de ki parto la poa debi ki choa dungi res, poa kyabu res. Teni di poa kyabu de la ta che mikyo torche ki kyawang kama ba mikyo torche ki karisunga res na chidangi kihu sumgi lamgi rimbala lokshidu poa dep sebra shakyu mekyang chidangi poa la rab ding ta sumye sungyo res rab de la kariyo poa rab de la kariyo res na chunyi ki tempa tongyo res sungyo res dinga de kariyo res poa dinga de temna ane shingam sule kigyo res poa tama de temna kariyo res ane tori ki neze kigyo res ane sungyo res.
And so one day we are going to have to leave this body behind and die. And when we do that, then we will end up in what is called the bardo. So the bardo means the period of time between when we die in this lifetime before we take the next birth. And at that time, then the lamas will do poa for us. They'll do the poa practice for us. And when they do this, they will try to do the poa for us, but sometimes it works and sometimes it is, sometimes there are different levels that it works at. As the 8th Karmapa Mikyo Dorje said in one of his works, he said that there are 3 different levels of people when we do poa. There are the best, there are the middling, and there are the least, or the lowest. And so for the best, when the guru does poa, then they can realize the nature of all phenomena. For the middling type of individuals, when the guru does poa, then they'll be reborn in a pure realm. And for the least, they will be reborn in the higher realms of samsara.
所以呢，总有一天我们会离开我们这个身躯，也就是我们会面临死亡。那在这个时候呢，我们首先会到一个中阴间。那中阴的意思呢，就是在这一生的死亡，还有下一生的投世之前，这中间的这段时间，我们称为中阴。那在这个时候呢，通常会请我们的上师，或是会有一位上师为我们修破瓦法。那破瓦法呢，对有的时候呢是非常有效的，有时候呢则是依据这个行者或是过世的这个人他的这个修持而异的。那第8世的大宝法王米救多杰就曾经开示过，有分为3个等级的这个修士，就是上士夫、中士夫还有下士夫。那为上士夫修持破瓦法的时候呢，在这个死亡的当下，这个行者就可以亲见这个万法的本性。为中士夫修持破瓦的时候呢，这个行者呢就可以得生这个净土。那为下士夫修持破瓦的话，则是会令他投生善趣。
네, 내가 나신게 지당게 치가를 포와서와데 발제를 다 뒤뒤가라 땡가란 좀 냠len 가야 마셔와라더니 포와 라마 다 투다니 바침보기 포와 잡나마도 지당기 펜도 카보레 송로레스 가르에서는 치가라 다는 나란주 공원이 많은 강다다 제자 첨보 요발되니 포와 데비레스 셈 때야나 카보라고 차고레스 돈라 셈 때마도나 포와세야데 치카모레 돈 도도데 가르에서는 나란주기 원이 라미기 포와 잡나야 나란주 돈 도도데 셈 야보지 때 야보지 셈곰 셈네 야보지 곰마고나 나란주 포와세와데 칙첨보 진로자 저좀보이나 소송원이디 매바이나 아니 치카모라고 차고레스 된도인들 대잠다 이체 제바 민펜인데 대잠이 포화당 하시도나 라미기 포화지 개불에 나도 냠내 만치는 디그레스 근데 전도 디기오 말해서 치카모라고 차고레스 인지 민지 다 포화데 아니 인지 민지 아니 단디뒤니 포화되더니 포화기 좀 포화 냠내 낭토와이나 안디뒤가나 오늘 단내 라마 계신다 뭐기 포화 잡나야나 아니 포화데 되네 펜도와 연구레스 송고레스
And it's also that way when, at the time that we die, when poa will be done for us, if we have not done any Dharma practice, then it'll be very difficult for us to actually direct our minds, pay attention during the time that we're doing the poa. And it'll be very difficult for it actually to do any benefit, bring us any benefit. The reason for this is that we'll have such fear and panic in our minds at the time of death that even if a great master does poa for us, we'll be unable to direct our minds for that. We'll be unable to rest our minds. And if we can't do that, then it'll be difficult for us to benefit for us. So the main point is that when a Lama does poa for us, then we need to be able to direct our minds from that. We need to direct our minds towards that. We need to be able to motivate. And if we do that, then the poa will have benefit. Otherwise, we can say the Lama is doing poa, but it's all just high words and empty words. So it's important for us that we not let it just be jargon or high language. Instead, we need to, from today onwards, we need to study and we need to practice Poa. And then if we do that, then it'll be possible for it to be beneficial when a Lama actually does it for us, as it is said.
那另外一点呢，就是在死亡的时候，当我们有上师为我们修破瓦法的时候，如果呢我们往昔没有任何的这个修持的经验，那在这个修破瓦法的时候，我们就会非常没有办法集中我们的注意力，没有办法将注意力集中于这个破瓦法上面，因为呢在死亡的当下，我们会面临极大的恐惧，还有这个恐慌。那因此呢，不管是多么资深，或是修行多么了悟的这个大德为我们修持这个破瓦法，我们还是会觉得说有困难，将我们的心转向这个破瓦法，将我们的这个将我们的注意力放在这个修持上，因为我们的心会当下会是非常混乱的。这也就是为什么呢？我们在这里说要有办法做到让心集中注意力，不然呢，这个上师所修的法就只是变成一种高尚的言语或是专有名词，对于我们来说一点意义都没有。这也就是为什么我们从今天开始就要去修学佛法。那这么一来呢，当往昔面临这个无常的时候，有上师为我们修破瓦法的时候，才能够真正利益我们。
Tene ngaranzo chibi kabla, tene bakcha sabo shaya tepe kechenpo res. Bakcha soso la bakcha yabo je yue na, ane semgi, piyo la nedang mindaw mambo chungwa ina, tene pato ngotre te yabo je yongsi gire sungyo res. Tene dina la karesan jikpi mumba, nabo ngune so leji lo ma tapu jane de sen sungyo res.
And at the time of death, it is really important that we have ingrained deep imprints or good imprints within our being, that we've made good habits in our mind. Because if we have, then when we are in the bardo, our mind will encounter many different situations. There is a good chance that we will be able to recognize the bardo well. Because at that time, it is as said on the bottom of page 45, in front, the black darkness of fear waits to take us in. From behind, we are chased by the fierce red wind of karma.
所以呢，对于这个面临死亡，我们要平常要修持的或是练习的，就是将这个好的习惯，或是串习这一些这个善的这些习惯在我们的心绪当中。因为在面临这个中阴的时候呢，会碰到我们的心会碰到非常多不同的状况。那我们的心要平时有修持的话，才能在这个中阴间穿梭，然后呢，好好的认知是什么情况。就像这个第44页法本有说了，可怖无明，暗遁隐于前，盛世凶猛，夜风逐于后。
Tene leji lungma trabo te jamne tek sarwa re, lungma wo chi yungi yotam medam. Wangi leji shuki kando drowa la tsu dodo meda wame ji te drota washi la kowa yungi yosares.
So at that time, then it'll be as if there's the strong wind of karma that is blowing us or chasing us. And where will it take us? What will it do? And so the meaning of this line is that where it goes, what will happen to us after we die, it depends upon our own karma from the past, our bad karma from the past.
所以呢，在这里就说了，会有这个炽盛的凶猛夜风追逐于我们后面。那这个夜风呢，也就是我们往行因果业报的这个所组成的这个风，它会 将我们驱赶去这个何处呢？这一切都取决于我们往昔所造的这个善恶业，而这个来定夺。
Teni midu shinje ponya tejing zoos. Soka ngendo donga nyongwe na lama keno toje nyudu se ngenson yangle taba jinji loos.
The text continues, the hideous messengers of the Lord of Death beat and stab us, and so we must experience the unbearable sufferings of the lower realms. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we are liberated from the chasms of lower realms.
然后呢，法本继续着，可憎阎罗使者扑诱达，难忍恶道之苦，须历尝。上师见之我，其以慈悲及垂顾，加持度脱恶趣之深渊。
Teni tangoma sangye wesung, sangwa sangye wesung ki tusu, ane kyawo chiyores. Kyawo tela, teni pe pu zikpo, yidu gongwa, pu yidu gongwa, pe pu shi kyewa res. Teni pu shi kye ne, teni pu tela, lo chung chung ne, zhong shorwa res. Teni zhong shor te zambala, teni kyawo te, teni kyawo tang, tsumo tang, kwa tang, cheba teni, pu te chone nyangen pe, yurimbo wondane nyange pe semdo chere yurimbo chere nangre tende inde zambala tende yurimbo kontunga semdo tende che nyange chimbo je shinangne shubares di kabla tende yu digarang la trachombaji yure trachombaji de la shu de trachombaji shubares tende trachomba de la ani karu yoresana tende trachomba de la wenshi 신보 당 트레이너 되는 신보 경우에 원시배 메시 야보요래 원시다 트레이너 되는 원시 나라 다좀 받으라 가리송에서나 나이 미유지 파말 소네 양의 슈루 잡고진이 나와라 차다 잡고 밥 신도 지자 차들 로솜친야 바도로 좀면도 슈도 다좀 받기 니람나라 거기 원시 나라 가리송에서나 다기디 겨우기 부대 아니 동쇼대 잠발라 겨우기 코다 좀보다 참아 되니 다 냥의 지도 잠발라 냥의나 지단들이 지도 잠발라 뒤 제발라 때니 부대 바토다 마타네 아니 직자다 응다다 된대지는 로숨바도 되는 바토니 마토바 된대지 슈도 되는 다 좀바되게 되니 공원시 체네 아니 겨울라 된대지는 지난주 내려지는 제도 세는 겨우치 뭐 결혼도 내려 샘데다 냥엔도 맞춰버지는 냥엔도 돌보기도 냥엔도 돌네 되는 결혼족이 돌네 이 결혼족라 배 냥엔 맞춰버든 전부치 결혼도 둘로야 뭐 남사야 뭐 아니 뭐남 야고 잡 남주 야고 때나 아니 고 받더니 되니 야고지 저쪽도 무슨 송래 스타주면 된전인데 잠발라 다 뒤견도 알아줘 저거 종모 내가 나시기 파마 년대 마보지 땅 알아줘 미닥스네 야제자다 중그래 내마야 중사월 마음보다 중그래 단다 된저 중그래 뒤뒤갑라 되는 알아줘 배 샘도 제 양의 제 남비 된저 바이나 오늘 신보들라 팽이요 말했어 신보들라 배 누구였는데 다 산지의 성격 갑라더니 다다 좀밖에 되는 무엇인데 되게 숨는 되게 제반은 되게 말했어. 인지 미쟁 하나 저한테 남주야 못해 하나 강투도 전부지 아니 남자도 저 야보 쳐봐야나 그 바도를 줘도 되게 중요했어.
So there's a story about this from the past, from the time of the Buddha Kashyapa. There was a king who had a son, and the son was really beautiful, a handsome, a wonderful little boy, but he died at a very young age. And when the king's son died, then the king and the queen and all of their retinue and courtiers all mourned and grieved for a very long time. They spent a long time just being sorrowful and depressed and suffering in their minds. Now, at that time, there was an arhat who lived in that same kingdom. that Arhat had already achieved clairvoyant powers. And the Arhat said that he saw through his clairvoyant powers. He said, I saw that there was a being who was stuck in the bardo, who was unable to be released from the bardo because his parents had been grieving for so long. And so he went to see the king, whose son had died. And he said to him, O king, because you have mourned so long for your son who has passed away, then you and your queen and retinues have mourned and grieved for such a long time. Your son has not been able to leave the bardo and has experienced a lot of fear and panic for 3 years in the bardo. I have seen this in my clairvoyant powers. So he told the king, he said, you all need to stop grieving so much. You can't, you need to give up all your sorrow. You need to forget about it. Instead, you need to make offerings. You need to dress nicely. You need to make good aspirations. And if you do this, then your child will be freed from the terrors of samsara. And so this is also something that is going to happen to us. We can see that our friends and our parents and our relatives, our siblings, they're all impermanent. And many of them have already died, and more will die in the future. And if at that time we grieve and lament them too much, then there is no benefit to it. It's like the story of the king at the time of the Buddha Kashyapa. And so instead, what we should do is, instead of solely grieving and lamenting, we need to actually present ourselves well. We need to make good offerings, make aspirations. And if we do that, it will be beneficial and allow that being to be freed from the bardo.
那在这个迦叶佛的这个时代呢，就有下面这个故事。当时呢，有一位国王，他生了一个非常俊俏的儿子，但是这个儿子呢，非常的年轻就夭折了。那当时呢，这个国王、王后还有宫里的这个宫中的才女啊等等们，就非常的伤心，而且呢，也因为失去了这个王子而伤心了非常长的一段时间，而且非常的痛苦。那在这个时候呢，在这个国度当中有一位这个阿罗汉，这位阿罗汉已经证得了一些这个神通，所以呢，当时呢，他在透过自己的神通力，就看到有一个众生在中阴间，饱受了痛苦，而且饱受了非常长的痛苦。那因为呢，他的父母为他的这个离去而守丧了非常长的一段时间。那因此呢，这位阿罗汉就前往进宫去见这个国王还有王后，跟他们说他所看到的这一切，就是他的儿子正在这个中阴间受着极大的痛苦还有恐惧，已经饱受这样的痛苦3年之多了。那这一切都是由于他们呢没有办法忘记失去他的这种伤痛。那在这里呢，阿罗汉就建议国王他们说，你们应该马上停止这样子的这样的这个伤心还有守丧，那应该反而要为以这个王子的名利呢，去广做布施，然后发起这些很多的善愿，这样的话呢，他就可以脱离这样的痛苦。那对于我们来说呢，当然我们也会面临这样的情况，就是我们可能身边的朋友还有家人亲友都有可能都一定会面临这个无常。那在这时候呢，如果我们不断的去为他追丧，为他这个伤心难过的话呢，就会如这个迦叶佛这个时代的这个例子一模一样。所以呢，在面临身边的亲友过世的时候呢，我们要为他们发起善心，然后呢，让他们好好的解脱，从中阴间解脱。
인도인도 잠발라 당가란주 지당기 미바이나 당가란주 냥에 제나 신부달라 내고요래 송도스 Antiga na shingi ngaranzo lama kechen tamate zo shinpe tu zambala loma de zo pe nyangen tili chebayana ane chemaki ane zechen la nyugure senen dili chena ando sungro yores dili chena sungu yores ta di chala teni rangyon ribo tsamya kongdu bes shildron tiru tsamya chochimes yende chungse mecha sambolo chobi minda chobin konar cho sene sungu yores.
And so, generally, this is saying that when we grieve for someone who's passed away, this will bring harm to actually bring harm to the person who has died. In particular, when students of a great master who has passed on to the next pure realm, if we grieve at the time that the master passes away, then it is said that it will actually cause harm to their future activity. So now to move on to the next stanza, which begins on page 47. We conceal within ourselves a mountain of faults, yet we put down others and broadcast their shortcomings, though they be as minute as a sesame seed. Though we have not the slightest good qualities, we boast, saying how great we are. We have the label of Dharma practitioners, but practice only non-Dharma.
所以呢，一般来说，当我们为某个人的这个过世而伤心而奔丧，这通常呢会对他们带来痛苦多过于利益。那相同的也有这么一说，就是当一位上师圆寂的时候，前往净土的时候呢，如果他的弟子们不断的在那边替他这个哀嚎或是这个惋惜的话呢，反而会为这位上师他将来的佛行事业带来一些障碍。然后呢，接着要讲的是第47页的偈子，在这里呢，偈词是如下：己恶如山，但于心中藏；他恶如芥，尽毁谤宣扬。无啥功德，却自骄贤善；假行者明，而只行非法。
ngaranzuki chizo la chinare, tene chizo ki nangla dronayare, tene mangzo nangla chinare, chidangi ngaranzu mikdang sem, shenda shengi kyun tao mado, migi kyun kyang mado, tene ngaran soso ki kyun taya de pe, mise kumbo yori tu kyun, ka tu inbay na ngaranzu migi kyun de pe, le laoji, lamsan tongres. Teni mi soso ikyonde ani soso la soso ka soso nanglo lo soso ikyonde ani tsani 통독을 말해스 가르에서나 teni ngaranjoki teni mi ikyonde kyang 다 soso ikyonde 통독을 말해스 남규때 미 남규 kyang 내절어 쳐 teni 용거래스 teni 잠발라 다 뒤뒤kab라 가르친 거래서나 나마 나바절랑 내기 로존 든든마 티비가블 슈차레 가르송을 로존 든든 마나라 가르송을잖아 신조 가야 미사마 선에 송을레스.
So what this is saying is that in general, when we go around outside, when we go outside in the town, when we go see people and so forth, what do? We only look at other people's faults. We're always looking with our eyes and with our minds. We're always looking to see what's wrong with other people. And we're looking to see what's wrong with them, to see what their faults are. But it's very rare to find anyone who actually looks to see their own faults. We always immediately see what's wrong with other people. We see what other people's faults immediately. But for our own faults, it's like they're hidden to us. We stuff them inside ourselves. We can't even see them. And what is the reason for that? The reason is that we are always looking at other people's, we're so focused on other people's wrongs and other people's faults that we're unable to see our own. So it's important for us to look at it. And so at this point, what is it we need to do? Well, it's the same thing as I taught to you when we were going through the mind training, the Lojong, as it says in that text, don't ponder others.
那通常我们外出的时候去去这个在城市里或是在其他地方和别人碰面的时候，我们总是以自己的这个眼睛还有这个心去看着别人的过失、别人的缺点，那反而是非常的难得会有人只是顾着看自己的缺点。通常呢，我们看别人会马上找到他们的缺点，而看自己的时候呢，却又找不到半点，好像全部都藏起来了。那为什么会这样呢？呃，为什么我们总是看别人缺点？就是因为我们只有将我们的注意力放在别人做错的事上面，而因此太过于着重于他人的过失，而忽略了自己的。那反而我们要着重的是要看看自己的过失、自己的缺点。那要怎么做呢？就好比我之前在这个修心七要当中所教导的，其中有一个偈言是说，不去思维他过。
돌나 되니 뒤진도 나란 저 미셔바기 창장장 주 아니 경장장 주 아니 나란기 경 가리어 봐대 아니 배셔거래 되는데 저는 나란 저네 제발 때네 가리어 거래 나란 생비 귀대 아니 들고요 말했어 들귀 만두라 마서 연된 매파 마서게는 나란 저배 셈데 나갈 채와 아니 나란 저 나갈 첨부여 봐도 최 많이 주민기 코나 나라 최다 맡음이 내가 장장 나란 저 제거래 나란 저 최비기 민다 그래서 나란 저 sama 나란 저 최쟁의 민다요래 나란 저 뒤견도 나란 저 낭sam만 나란 저 sama로 하고 송 최대 당가 라미 고발 되는 마보 샤열에서 나란 저 최쟁의 예대의 최민기 잡아대 장장 되는 되는 최비미 민다과 마도 되메기 장장 되는 쿨 더거래스 하바도 되는 나란조 최비기 민쿨 대가 난생에 되는 나란조 라미 군데네 캠브 tomba쇼 장주 삼기 tomba쇼 만주 캠보 케드바이나 되니 소다르기 tomba쇼 되는지 되네 도르드바이나 되니 다 최다 맞음이 민 되네 장장 제버 되네 되네 소다우자냐 되네 하장이 탑도 못 되냐 지그어레스 티 가르쳐 그래서는 나란조 꾸마랑이 꾸어다고 차거래서 꾸마 꾸엔데랑 꾸사랑다고 차거래 그래서는 나랑게 고고탄 거래서 민 고고탄 거 말해서
So usually we spend our time trying to dig up other people's faults. We always look for other people's faults, but we're hiding our own. And because we do this, what happens is that we are unable to actually tame our own beings. Not only are we unable to tame our own beings, we never develop any qualities. We get too proud. And because we are too proud, we actually only do non-dharma things. We call ourselves Dharma practitioners, and all of us in our houses, we all have shrines, we have statues, we have offerings, tankas, paintings, and we say to ourselves, I'm a Dharma practitioner. But actually, if we look at ourselves, we're not. We're only doing non-Dharma things. We're spending all of our time doing non-Dharmic things. And if we do that, it is meaningless. Just calling ourselves a Dharma practitioner is meaningless. So we call ourselves Dharma practitioners, and we take refuge in bodhisattva vows from great masters. If we're members of the Sangha, then we take the monastic vows. And even though we do that, we never look at our own faults. We only look at other people's faults, and we end up only doing non-dharmic things. And this is just a really terrible situation to end up in. And instead, and if we do this, what happens is that we are like thieves who are stealing from our own houses. So the thief is ourselves. The victim of the crime is ourselves. And if this happens, then we're not actually fooling anyone else. The only people we are fooling is ourselves.
所以通常呢，我们都是将时间花费于这个观察其他人的缺点，而还有就是隐藏我们自己的缺点。那因此呢，我们没有办法降服自身或是自己的心，没有办法降服自心的话呢，就不会有任何的功德升起，然后呢，也不会有任何的这个如法的这个修持升起。那在家里呢，可能我们供了佛，摆了许多法器，而且呢，一再的告诉自己哦，我们是这个佛子，我们是修行人，但是这一切表面的这一切都是毫无意义的。我们可能在寺院跟着上师做皈依，受着皈依戒，还有菩萨戒，跟随着这些僧人的脚步去在外表做一些这个表象，但是呢，到最后我们却做出来的行为都是不如法的。那这就好比我们说，有一个小偷去自己的这个家里盗窃，这样的话呢，这个小偷既是犯人又是受害者，他这么做呢，也只是在欺骗自己而已。
된전인데 잠발라 나랑서 최비민다 최빈권나져도 최비민다다 차로 완전 진발라 송하다 고발다 엔데가 나신기 다 가서래 모더나라이나 되니 저때 고발자우샤 장원자우샤 라발라 장다 최정은 딱 지군지마 잠마인바 최민 맞춰봐 마이마 디니 코로나 되니 소소 생미 디니 시신 두어 봐요 최바 민지 보면마 되니 셈 낭, 치, 참아, 알아도 뒤균도 전시 봐요. 근데 최다도 맞지 지야 돼. 배 개체모 인사를 했어.
And so, as it has said here, we have the label of Dharma practitioners, but we practice only non-Dharma. And so we look like we're Dharma practitioners. We practice generosity. We do things. We have malas. We have statues. We have shrines and everything. We have malas hanging from our car, in our cars. We have pictures of lamas in our cars, and so forth. But if this is just acting on the outside, what we really need to do is we need to see whether in the depths of our hearts we actually have mindfulness, awareness, and carefulness. And do we have that mindfulness and awareness and carefulness that we can always practice in a way that accords with the Dharma? Doing this is really important.
所以在这里呢，这个法本就说，假行者名而指行非法，就是说呢，我们假冒着行者这个名义呢，也就是在外表看起来像行者，也就是我们可能在家里啊有这个，我们平常好像在做布施啊，或是呢有着几条佛珠啊，有这个佛像啊、佛塔啊，或是在车里挂了这个上师的这个法像，在车上挂了这个佛珠，这些都是外在的一种表现。但是呢，在心里，我们要好好的，要着重的是去检视我们心里的深处有没有这样的这个正念，有没有觉知，有没有不放逸，这才是重要的一点。
라서 다다리 단다기 나쪽에 주된 참 대가 시작이 있어. 다 개비 짜와된 로아르로 섬진 탐지기 된들라. 되네 뭐놈 야보 지네 대화 정이 슈르게 뭐놈 야보 지잡나로 나.
And so that is enough for this morning's session. So please dedicate all of the root to the benefit of all sentient beings of these six realms of samsara, that they may be reborn in the pure realm of Dewa Chen.
好，那今天就讲到这里，早上就讲到这里。那请各位将我们所累积的善根回向给所有六道的轮回当中的众生，愿他们可以早日投生这个西方极乐净土。
마오 원조 산제 나와나에 나이수 조원도 제정보다 현도 선반도 제도나라 산제 전 밤에 고제고 대제 원자 바도 매바에 대와 진제 자외 증한데 다젠데네 저외 유만다 이제 와 진제 마마 저바 대로지네 난데 자동조 되게 나게 몰라 다와데 저저 산제 장세 단제 제게 맨조부를 진제라도 내가 맨다데 아와 못다나이 저대 야와 세제고 손이 돌아지라 타게 구성에서 봐 본조선라 제바 야외의 마베저제 와선제 고랑 로선예 도저제 게도 담제제데 다게 졸라메저제 데네 다네 도조데 세레네메 냠도베 젠데서조 남제 좀마다 대화제도제주 제네메 마가제데 르데데라 산예 창조 돕는 제주도 주변 로와 덴버조 세든 조소 담배 주지 라야 베베 고자 제고 내 삼제 시도 예와 제스 우진 질레 돌제 잡데 조 템베 바조 가마 로드 주변 상보 윤된 거자도 베제 샤베 나데 제주 칠레 졸레 남녀베워조 소놈디 dom제 세바니 dom나니베 나나모제 예가라 나제 발라 두바 예세베 졸레노 점바라조. Thank you. See you 2 p.m.
谢谢，2点见，下午2点见，休息2个钟头。